Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss how, far from uniting the Conservative Party by eliminating their dividing lines over Europe, Brexit actually guaranteed Tory infighting for years to come. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So it was always said that Europe, and more specifically the UK's place in Europe, was the issue that was always guaranteed to divide the Conservative Party. Brexit, according to some, presented a way to deal with this divisive issue once and for all, allowing the party to be much more united in the future and, as a result, even more likely to win elections. Divided parties do not win elections. Hasn't really worked out that way, though, has it? No, as Blackadder goes forth mentions, there was a small flaw in the plan. This small flaw was that it was never actually going to deliver the benefits that Tory Eurosceptics wanted, but was going to deliver a great deal of damage to the Tories' reputation for economic competence. There were, of course, lots of different Eurosceptic groups who wanted the UK to leave the EU. Not all of them were within the Conservative Party, but it was all for different reasons after that fact. There was no argument amongst the various groups for what should come next. No roadmap produced by the government which committed itself quite unnecessarily to enacting it. And because every single Brexit group wanted something that was not in the interest of the public whom they needed to support it, they all had to lie about what they really wanted as well. So in the end, there was no way of delivering the Brexit that pleased any group, with the possible exception of the disaster capitalists who made a killing short in the pound. Even Putin failed to get what he wanted out of it. But most of the pro-Brexit groups existed outside of the Conservative Party, or at least the Parliamentary Party. These groups now either pretend that Brexit's actually working fine, though they are in an ever-shrinking minority. The Telegraph has just brought out an article talking about, the quiet Brexit wins that the Remainers don't want to talk about. You read the article and basically, do you know what their Brexit success is? Do you know what it is? It's not as bad as they said it would be. But it's like, well, first of all, you're exaggerating how bad the experts said it would be. First of all, because actually what the experts have said is bang on. But second of all, even if it were true, you don't get to claim Brexit's a success because it's not as bad as they said it would be. For Brexit to be a success, it has to be better than it was, you fools. Or who are the fools? They are the ones who are reading it and believing it. But the ones trying to claim Brexit's actually going well, they're a small minority now. Because the public really, fundamentally, are not that stupid. So the other group of them, the much larger group, attacked Conservative MPs for being too incompetent to deliver the benefits or lacking in conviction, belief. Only when they were campaigning for Brexit, the issue of competence never came up, did it? There was no big speech where Farage, Wigmore, Hannan or anyone else outside the Conservative Party said, look, Brexit's got this huge potential, but it'll be very important to get the right chaps in charge to deliver it. None of that was going to be the case. It was all going to be easy. Piece of piss. And for some, this appeared to be what they genuinely believed. Free market capitalism, like communism, is an ideological model which can never survive contact with reality because it fundamentally fails to take account of the way people and societies behave. I've said before that the most honest argument any Brexiteer ever made was to say, well, they don't like the protectionist nature of the EU. Well, that's fine, but the EU does protect its members. But so does every trading bloc. So does every independent country. Some of these Brexiteers genuinely believed that the UK would detach itself from this modern move towards trading blocs and be a free trade beacon to the world. The world, like a group of moths, would then be attracted to the free trade beacon and adopt the same policies themselves. What actually happened was that the world noticed that the fifth largest economy in the world had just flushed its trade deals down the toilet and was desperate to get them back. Desperation not really a benefit at the negotiating table. I may have to discuss that more later this weekend, maybe later today, who knows. So now we have several trade deals with important economies where we had to concede huge levels of UK market access in return for not really anything of note in the other direction. Australia, for example, they don't want our stuff. The stuff they wanted to import from us, they already do. They already did so under reasonable terms. They don't really want more of our stuff. Even the UK government's own economic impact assessments say we might, in each case, Every time they've done an economic impact assessment on the latest Brexit trade deal, they've said we might get a 0% trade boost. And that's on the optimistic end of projections. 0%. And if 0 sounds a bit rubbish, it's better than the -4% we got from our EU trade deal. And when I say 0% is optimistic, I mean it. The Japanese trade deal, that was the first, wasn't it? The first to come online. When the resulting trade figures came in, it turned out actually lowered our beneficial trade with Japan. So the reality turned out to be negative. The Tories are currently cheering the Australian and New Zealand trade deals coming online. Who wants to bet against those turning out to be negative as well? Basically, the free trade dream is dead. Some of them are sticking their fingers in their ears and insisting that it's all fine. Nobody is falling for it. And this has created a much bigger problem for Conservative MPs than their previous arguments about our place in Europe. Brexit has proven to be an economic disaster. It also meant having to make Boris Johnson leader. Disaster number 2. This led to numerous problems, including bitter splits within the party between red and blue wall Tories. Granted, this is a short-term problem because the next election will wipe the red wall Tories out. But it will also kick the rest of them onto the opposition benches as well. Brexit is increasingly unpopular with the public, and the arguments for it are increasingly unbelievable. The main saving grace for the Tories is that Brexit is very low down on the priority of issues for voters. Unfortunately, the issues which are high priority amongst their voters, the economy, healthcare, immigration, have all been made worse by Brexit. I've said before, and no doubt will say again, the Conservatives are currently losing all coherence. Ever since David Cameron dropped the Brexit time bomb and did a runner, the party has been choosing leaders based on a single criterion. How will they manage Brexit? So they've been choosing leaders based on their attitude towards a single policy area to the exclusion of all others, and a policy area which is impossible to actually resolve because to deal with it, you need to be honest about it. And no one's been honest about it. Any intelligent Tory MPs will be looking ahead to a future where, as the complicating factors of plague and war subside, Brexit is seen as the constant which remains to cause us problems. Every time there's some bad weather in a field in Europe, we're going to have shortages in the supermarkets. People travelling to the continent are going to have to get used to these checks, which will turn their holidays into nightmare whenever a computer system goes down or whenever there's just a lot of them trying to get through at once, as it did last weekend. We haven't even started our inward standards controls yet. That's going to be fun. At least that will be mostly Labour's problem to deal with from the Conservatives' point of view. But it will still be a Brexit wake-up call to the public, whomever is in government. And these vaguely aware Tories are also going to have to try to prepare for a future where millions of additional voters are added to the electorate, as I discussed recently. With each coming general election, there will be way fewer Leave voters left with us, but more who would have voted Remain, allowed to vote, whether just by getting older or because Labour are giving the votes to more young people, as well as at least some, we don't know how many yet, settled EU citizens. In the future, Labour are going to have to rub out their current red lines, but it's much easier for them to do so. Those lines only exist because of target voters. If voters were on board with a more explicitly anti-Brexit position, there would be no internal opposition. The Lexiteers are all but silenced now. They've buggered off. There would be enthusiastic support for rejoining from Labour members, from Labour MPs, if it became politically beneficial. But the Conservatives will know that, even if the political landscape demanded a pro-EU position from the Tories to win an election, even if that was necessary, they would still face severe resistance within their own party, both from members and MPs, to say nothing of their media baron overlords. Those Conservative MPs who knew Brexit was going to be a disaster, like Theresa May, saw it as a damage limitation exercise in order to avoid splitting the party. They would have been better advised to be completely open about it, launch very public inquiries into the impacts of Brexit, and legislate for a second referendum with the terms of exit. The ERG and allied MPs would have raged, and the party would have been at war with itself, but it would have been done with now. Though I accept there would still be some lingering resentment in the far corners of the party for some time to come. As it is, they have now committed themselves to a much bloodier civil war for the future, because they're going to have to fight that war. Right now, the Conservative Party are still still right now choosing leaders based on how they would deal with Brexit and framing policies in terms of Brexit. You know, every time someone suggests a policy, Tory MPs are going, what would Brexit Jesus do? How's that a way to appeal to the public? It's still a fact that their only criterion for choosing a leader is on a policy that most voters do not prioritise when deciding who to back in an election. And when they do think about it, the vast majority do not agree with the Conservatives. At some point, if they want to become a credible party again, this will have to change. They will need to back a leader based on their ability to present a credible manifesto. That would imply a leader who can be pragmatic and who does not shut their eyes to facts. And support for Brexit purity is not pragmatic. The civil war they are going to have to fight is going to be way worse than the one they could have fought a few years ago when they had more in their favour. It always is. It always is. You look at the mess in Ukraine, how much easier and cheaper would it have been to have dealt with it in 2014? It always happens. Appeasement always ends up with you in this position. You know, how would the ERG have argued against a second referendum to confirm the terms of exit? They would have done, they'd have raged about it, but how would they reasonably have argued against it? But that option is gone now. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.